Hello sports fans, welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be ranking every MLB starting catcher before the 2022 MLB season. So we're going to be doing this in tier list format, something I've never done before. So hopefully you guys like it. So, in the tier list, at the top of the tier list, we have the elite category. So for the top however many catchers. Then we have the above average. Next is solid, then below average, and then bad. So, on to my catcher rankings. First up, we have Austin Nola. So, he's pretty good. He had some injury problems last year, but as I said, he's pretty good, so I'm going to give him a solid. Second is Carson Kelly of the Diamondbacks. Another catcher I'm going to put in solid. He does everything pretty good, nothing spectacular, nothing horrible. Next up, we have our first below-average catcher, that's Robinson Torinos. So he's 37 years old. He's not a starter anymore, or he shouldn't be, but he's the Orioles starter. Not quite sure why he has a Yankee uniform on. He hasn't put on the Yankees in like 2 years. But he's not really that good anymore. He's 37 years old. I'm going to give him a below average. Next up, we have Elias Diaz, the Rockies catcher. So he did not start last year. However, he had an outstanding second half of the season, and he's a pretty good defensive catcher. I'm going to give him above average. Next up, we have Mitch Garver, now playing for the Texas Rangers. He had a good season last year. He'll be splitting time with Jose Trevino this year. He's borderline above average, but I'm going to give it to him. I think he's still a good catcher. Next up, we have Yasmani Grandahl. He's elite. He's one of the best catchers in baseball. Next up, we have Austin Hedges. Another catcher who's a little bit below average offensively, but a good defender. So, another catcher I'm going to put in the solid category. Next up, we have Yankees catcher Kyle Higashioka. So this will be his first year starting. In the past, he was Garrett Cole's personal catcher. I'm going to give him a solid. He's a good defender, however, not the greatest hitter. Next up, we have Jacob Stallings of the Marlins. So he hit .245 last year, didn't have much power. However, he's very good defensively. Sorry, he hit .249. I think I said .245. But I'm going to give him an above average. Next up, we have James McCann of the Mets. Definitely above average. He didn't have an amazing season last year, which could prevent him from being in the elite category. However, overall, I think he's a well above average catcher. Next up, we have Danny Janssen of the Blue Jays. He was really good down the stretch last year. Another above average defender who's not amazing. I'm going to put him in the solid category. Next up, we have Joey Bart of the Giants. This will be his first year in the majors. He's replacing Buster Posey, who retired following last season. So we don't really know what he's capable of in the majors. So I'm going to say solid, but we don't really know much about him. Next up, we have another young catcher we don't know much about, Hebert Ruiz of the Nationals. He came over to the Nationals in the Max Scherzer and Trey Turner trade. He came over from the Dodgers. Another one I'm going to put in the solid category. We don't know much about him. Next up, we have Stack Stasi of the Angels. He's above average. He's looking for a bounce-back offensive season, but still a stellar defender. Stasi is in the above average. Next up, another above-average catcher. We have Mike Zanino of the Tampa Bay Rays. He was an all-star last year. He's got tons of power. I'm giving him above average. Next up, we have Martin Maldonado. So he's getting a lot older. He's not as good defensively, offensively. He's still a decent defender. I'm going to give him a below average. Next up, we have Omar Norvya. Hopefully I said his name right. He's another catcher who's above average. He's got a lot of power for the Brewers. Whoops. Next up, we have Salvador Perez. He's arguably the best catcher in the game. He was tied for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with the most home runs in a season last year. Next up, we have another catcher I'm going to put in the elite category, JT Romuto. He had a little bit of a down year last year, however, he's still one of the best catchers in baseball. Next up, we have Roberto Perez of the Pirates. Not a great defender, however, he's very good at throwing out runners. He's solid, borderline above average. I'm going to give him a solid, though. Next up, another solid catcher, we have Gary Sanchez. So he's a very below average defender. He's not the best at the plate anymore. He had, when he first came into the league, he was just hitting a ton of home runs. He still has that power, he's just not as consistent. So he's in the solid category. The next catcher, we have Sean Murphy of the A's. He's a top 10 catcher right now. I'm going to put him in above average. Next up, we have another Murphy, actually Tom Murphy of the Mariners. He's solid. He's a good catcher. Next up, we have Braves catcher Travis d'Arnaud. He's one of the better catchers in the league, definitely above average. He's really just a good all-around catcher. Next up, we have Tucker Barnhart of the Tigers. Good defender. I'm going to give him solid. He didn't have a great 2021 season. However, he's still a pretty good catcher. Next up, we have Tyre Stevenson, who actually, well, technically, he forced Barnhart out of Cincinnati. He was a good defender and had a very good season at the plate last year as well. I'm going to give him above average. Next up, we have Christian Vasquez. He's definitely a good catcher. He's not amazing defensively, but he's definitely good, so I'm going to give him above average. He's borderline solid. Next up, we have Will Smith. He's overlooked because of the Dodgers' stacked lineup. However, he's definitely one of the better catchers in the league. I'm going to give him elite, but he's just above there, just above the above average category. Next up, we have Wilson Contreras of the Cubs. He's, in my opinion, very underrated, and he's firmly sitting in that above average category. And last up, we have Yadier Molina of the Cardinals. He's still one of the best defensive catchers, still above average. So those are my catcher rankings for before the 2022 season starts. So let me know if you agree, disagree, and why with my catcher rankings. So like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you agree with any of my. Let me know if you agree, disagree, why. Tell me who you agree with, who you disagree with. I do my best to post as often as possible. And I will see you, and that has been every single day. So like, subscribe, comment if you agree, disagree, and why, and I will see you in the next video.